Hi everyone, so I'm going to be going over an example. We're going to create a form, so it's not going to be a fully functioning form, but I'm going to be setting up a form where we're going to just see how we can type in something and use regex in order to see if it's typed in properly. So if the first letter of the name is capitalized, then a button will show up at the end, but if the name is not typed in properly, it doesn't have the first letter capitalized, then the button will not show up and then an error will show down below. So we're going to use different functions, regex and ternary operator all together, and this will help in creating the form. So first thing we want to do is we want to create a brand new project on our desktop. So we're going to go to cd desktop and npx create next app, and we'll just call this form validation or something. You can call it anything you like. And we'll just say no to all of these options here. No, 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 and then just enter. And we'll just wait for this to finish. And now that this is done, we'll just drag and drop this folder into Visual Studio Code. And we're going to start off with a brand new project here. So in our pages, we're going to go to index.js. And I'm going to remove a few things. I'm going to remove this inter line right here. And also I'll remove the import inter. And I'm going to remove everything in between the main here. So let's have something basic like this. I'm going to save it. And also I'm going to go into my styles, the globals.css. I'm just going to delete everything in here for now so it doesn't mess up with all the different colors. And the home here as well, I'll just delete everything, save it. So I just want nothing in my styles. It doesn't matter right now. And I just want to have a brand new empty project. And this is where I'm going to be, well, the main page is going to be the home page. So here I'll just say welcome to this site or something like that. And I'll just save it. And it should just have this text for right now, but also before we check it out, I'm going to also set up a components folder. So in this components folder, I'm going to create a new folder at the root, and I'll say components. And in the components folder, I will make another folder, and I'll call it form. And inside the form, I'll have form.module.css, and I'll also have index.js. And in the index.js, I'm going to set up a default template. And what I'll do right here is I will be importing the form later on, but I think for right now we'll just see like what shows on our screen right now. And I'll just do npm run dev. And we can see here it just says welcome to my site. So that's exactly what we want. And we just want to make sure that we can import the form here later, but we're just not going to worry about that right now. Now, inside this form component, we want to actually start setting up all of the logic for our form. So what I'll be doing is right here, I will have a form, and what I'll be doing is in the form there'll be a label, and it will say please enter your first name, and I'll have an input field, and this I'll set up some attributes here. Okay, so I have a bunch of these values here for the input. I'll just line it up nicely. So we're going to take some sort of input, and on this input we want to grab the actual value. So I'll call the onChange functionality, and I'm going to be calling this function, which I haven't set up yet. It's going to be called handle change first name. And right in between the export and return, this is where I want to actually call or set up this function. And I'm going to be passing over some sort of event. And what I'll be doing here is I'm going to be checking to see if it's a valid first name or not. So what I'll be doing is, if it's not is valid first name, valid first name. So what I'll be doing actually is setting up another function. Event.target.value is just taking the value from the input, but based on this function is valid first name, we'll determine whether or not it is true or false. So I'm going to be setting up another function above, and it'll say is valid first name, and I'll say it's passing in the first name, and then it'll return this regex. So I'm just going to copy it over. This is essentially saying there's no spaces. This is essentially saying that the first letter will be capitalized, and then it'll test the first name, which is what's being passed over. And based on this test, if it is true or false, it will either go inside here or not. So if it is false, then what it'll do is it'll come in here and it will set error message, error first name, and it'll set that error message to say first name error, first letter must be capital, must use alphabets only, or something like that. And this is another function. Well, it's not a function, it's a useState. It's calling a useState. So we're going to set it up for const. First I'll set it up for first name and set first name. And there we go. So we're not using that one. We're just using the useState here. And this useState is just an empty string for right now. And if there is an error message, we're going to save it right here. Error first name. And that'll equal to useState as well. Empty string. Const. So if the first name pass and set first name pass is equal to useState of 0, and then const show set show is equal to useState of false initially. And what we will do is this will set the error. So if this is not a valid first name, then it will set the error message. And based on this error message, we'll tell it whether or not it displays or not. But first what we'll do is, after this if statement right here, we'll also set up another if statement, and we'll say first name pass is equal to 0. So if it's initially 0, which it is, then once you start typing, and if it is valid, whether you type or not, it's going to set it to the set first name pass. And then first name pass plus 1. Okay, and then what we're going to be doing here is actually this one should be inside here. So if it is not valid, we will, because it's already been entered once, we're going to change that first name pass to increment by 1, so then the error message doesn't show up again. But what I'll do is now after this if statement, we'll have an else. And in this else statement, we are going to then set up something else. We're going to say set error first name to empty. So if there was an error message, it'll get rid of it. And if first name pass is equal to 1, then we'll set first name pass to first name pass minus 1. So go back to 0, and set show will be true. So it will show up, it'll set this to true in order to, whether it shows the error message or not. So then what we can do is we can set first name to event.target.value, and we can console.log first name pass just to look at it. But this should be a good majority of the code right now. So what we want to do now is we want to actually show this error message. Well, actually first we're going to show whether or not we show the button or not. So if the show is true and error first name dot length is equal to 0, so there's no error message at all, then we'll say that the link will link a button. So when we set up a link, remember we have to import the link at the top, which it sometimes automatically does it for you. And right here in between the button, we'll just say submit. And this link tag here will say href is equal to navigate. And we're going to do something with this navigate shortly. I'm just going to say button type is equal to button. And we will say this, so let me move it on the other line here. So remember, this is a ternary operator. So if it is true, then we'll show this button that will navigate somewhere else. But if it is false, then it'll just not display anything. So what we have here is this show is coming from the logic here. So if initially show is false, it's not going to display the button. The button is going to be hidden from the form. But if it goes through this check, so if the name is not valid, it's going to skip it. Well, if it is not valid, then nothing will show up. But if, for example, if the name is valid, because we have that not operator, it's going to skip it, and then it'll go to else, because if it is going to have the proper first name, Then now what we can do is we'll clear any error messages if there was any before. So now it's empty. The length is 0. So the first name passed because initially it would change from 0 to 1. So we're going to go back to 0. And now it's going to set the show to true. And because set show is now true, it's going to say true here. And then error first name length, it goes back to 0 because we cleared it. So now true and true will show us this button link, and it'll just be empty. And what we want to do under the form is, let's say we want to display the error message. So here we could say error first name. And so if there's nothing, so if the error first name, if there is an error in the first name and it's true, then what we can do is in the paragraph tag, we can say something like, or we can call the error first name, and we'll display that message. And I'll put style, inline style here, and I'll say color. I think this is like a red color. And let's put font weight of 500, so it'll be bold. So I'll display some sort of error message if there's anything to show. And what we need to do now is we need to actually navigate somewhere. So in our index.js, we can import, let's just import the form. And if we want to show this form on the home page, we just call the form, and we can now here just set up navigate. Let's say we want to navigate to a dashboard page, and I'll also make the page right here, dashboard.js, and I'll just set up default template. There we go. So welcome to the dashboard. And because here in our home page we're passing over this property value of dashboard, then what we could do is right over here in our form, in between these rounded brackets, we'll have the curly brace, and then I'll put navigate is equal to the default, I'll just say home page. But if we do use navigate somewhere here, which is right here, then if something is being passed over, because this is the default, if nothing is passed over, it'll go to home. But because here in our home page we're passing over dashboard, it will navigate to the dashboard whenever the button shows up and someone clicks on it. So let's save this, and let's actually go to our browser. So right over here I have the form, and I can start typing in something. It says please enter your first name. So I'll type in lowercase, I'll say Monica. So it says first name error, first letter should be capital or must be capital, and must use alphabets only. So what I could do is I'll change it then to Monica. And you can see now a submit button shows up once I've typed it correctly. And if I hit submit, it says welcome to the dashboard. So now I have been navigated to my dashboard page. So if you guys want to take a look at the code, I will put a link to the GitHub repository so you guys could check it out.